We're talking trade rumors here on today's 76ers Now. I am Jake Chipper. Thank you so much for tuning in and making us a part of your day. The Utah Jazz, according to reports, are open for business looking to trade some of their key veterans. Could the 76ers be buyers and add some of those pieces to their roster? That's what we're talking about here on today's 76ers Now. Again, thank you all for tuning in, making us a part of your day. Before we get into four players from the Utah Jazz that are reportedly available that I think could help the 76ers, I want to get a pulse from our 76ers fans out there. Do you think the 76ers need to make a trade? If you think they do, I want you to hit that thumbs up icon, like the video. If you think they don't, you think they're fine with the roster they have and they'll figure things out as they start to get a little more healthy, then comment why you think they're okay with the guys they have right now on the squad. So as I mentioned off the top, the Utah Jazz, according to reports, are open for business. There's been multiple reports from multiple different NBA insiders and NBA sources that Utah is looking to trade some of their key veteran pieces. It's only, December 6th here today, and Utah's already looking towards the NBA draft. Now, this won't include Lauri Markkanen, but there are several good veterans that are on the Utah Jazz that I think the Sixers should at least take a look at and inquire about trading for and see sort of what the value is on some of these guys. So let's get into those reports about the Utah Jazz. This first one coming in from Mark Stein, who said the league-wide presumption about the Jazz nonetheless persists that John Collins, like fellow veterans Jordan Clarkson and Collin Sexton, is a prime candidate to be dealt between now and the February 6th trade deadline by Utah Jazz CEO Danny Ainge. For a team that is known to be prioritizing draft position above all this season as Utah plots its course to build out a sustainable core around star forward Lauri Markkanen. And then we also had this report from Michael Scotto sort of adding on to that report from Mark Stein, who said, due to the collective bargaining agreement rule, star forward Lauri Markkanen can't be traded until the offseason. That's why he's not involved in any of these trade rumors right now, because he got that extension. With that in mind, all eyes are on Walker Kessler, name that Michael Scotto adds here, along with the previously mentioned Jordan Clarkson, John Collins, and Collin Sexton. So four names there from the Utah Jazz that could be had and could be available for trade this season. So I'm going to go through all four of them, see if they make sense for the 76ers and what Philly might have to give up if they do want to get in on the race on some of these guys. So let's start here first with Collin Sexton. I like Collin Sexton as a player, and I think he would fit well off the bench for the 76ers. Now, this year for the Jazz, about 17 points, 3 assists. Very efficient scoring early on this season, and that's what the Sixers could look to use some of. They've really struggled as a team, especially shooting from three and especially shooting open threes. And Collin Sexton's a guy that can get it off the dribble, get it off the catch. Just someone to add a little more scoring punch to, you could start him next to Maxey. Personally, I would rather have him come off the bench and start either Kelly Oubre or Jared McCain. Of course, we'll see what the Sixers might have to give up for a trade for Collin Sexton. But look, he's having a very good year. And as you take a look here at his shot chart this season, green on shot charts means good. And take a look here at where all the green is on Collin Sexton's shot chart. 40% on above the break threes, that is 5% above league average. And in those corners, 54% in the left corner, 44% in the right corner, struggling in that long mid-range, which you don't want him taking too many of those shots anyways. Struggling a little bit at the rim, although only a little bit below league average there. But what I also like is that in that paint, outside the restricted area, 51%, those little floaters, little push shots from that area, just shows he can kind of get it from all areas of the floor. And Collin Sexton, over the last 4 seasons, the last 3 that he's been in Utah, been a very solid player, very underrated player. Doesn't get a whole lot of love because, again, Utah's been awful. So there is that question. Is it just empty stats, bad team? But personally, I don't think so. And, having a career year from 3 this season, not going to give you too much in the way of, running an offense and playmaking. But, as a combo guard that can, hopefully for the Sixers, come off the bench and pack a little scoring punch, man, could they ever use that right now? Now, when it comes to Collin Sexton, and we're going to look at some potential trades for all of these players. And I want to mention, before we get into these trades, this is not me saying this is what I would offer for these players, what the Sixers should offer for these players. I want to give you a look at the financials and what the Sixers would have to give up in order to get some of these players, just from a money perspective, because the Sixers being in that where they are in the salary cap and the tax, they have to match 100% of what they receive coming back. So Collin Sexton, you see here, making $18.3 million this season. Sixers had to find a way to match that. They have the KJ Martin contract at about $8 million, but they need to add something a little more substantial. So they have to trade one of Kelly Oubre or Caleb Martin. I have Kelly Oubre here. Just personally, I'd rather keep Caleb Martin, and you also need to add in Eric Gordon to make the money work. So, would picks be involved? Who knows? This isn't exactly what the trade would be, but this is at least what you have to include to get the money to work to add Collin Sexton. Is that worth it? Giving up Oubre, KJ Martin, Eric Gordon, not really huge parts of your rotation anyways. KJ Martin is that trade piece that the Sixers are going to want to use, or giving up Kelly Oubre, of course. But, when you're getting a player like Collin Sexton, not going to do the things Oubre does defensively, but I think would be a more efficient offensive player and would certainly help from that regard. Now, moving forward, let's go to John Collins next. John Collins is having a career season with the Utah Jazz. And, he was with Atlanta. He was kind of this 20-10 guy who people thought long-term could be a good player and a good team, but had a bad end to his career in Atlanta, as we'll take a look at here in a second. But has started to find himself again here with the Utah Jazz. You can see about 18 points, about almost 9 rebounds. But what I really love, 53% from the field and 40% from three. If John Collins, with his skill set, his athleticism, could also be a very good three-point shooter, he could be a very, very good player. But again, we haven't seen that consistently his whole career. It's kind of just been this year that he's really, really started to break out. Now, we take a look a little more in depth here at some of John Collins' numbers and where he ranks around the league. You can see that 17.8 points, 87th percentile, 8.7 rebounds, 95th percentile. But again, you can see the 40% from three on 3 attempts, which is a solid amount of attempts, and true shooting percentage, which is a good, mark to see a player's overall efficiency, 80th percentile. So again, just having a very strong, efficient season this year for the Jazz, and a player that they definitely should be looking to get value for, because when you look at what he's done the past few years, his trade value has never been higher than what it is right now. You saw, again, as I mentioned, that last year in Atlanta had a very down year shooting the rock. But the past couple of years, he's built himself back up a little bit to a point now where Utah could hold on him to a good player if they wanted to, but clearly now they want to get some value for him. And filling in at that 4 position, we know it's been a big need for the Sixers all year long. And whether I think he can play a little small ball 5, play next to Joel Embiid when he's healthy, even, mix in with Andre Drummond, Gershon Yabusele, just get the Sixers more size and also more scoring and more versatility at that sort of wing/big position. Now, the only issue here with John Collins is his salary. He does have the largest salary of all the players we're going to talk about today, $26.5 million. It's going to be hard pressed for the Sixers to try to match that. You have to throw in Caleb Martin, Kelly Oubre, and KJ Martin, along with Eric Gordon, just to get that. Is it worth it to give up 2 of your key rotational players in Caleb Martin and Kelly Oubre to get John Collins? Personally, I don't think so, but this is what it would take money-wise to be able to match what John Collins is making this season. So that's 2 players down from the Utah Jazz the Sixers could take a look for. We do have 2 more to go, but before we get to those 2, got to give a shout-out to today's sponsor, and that is DraftKings. Right now, if you download the DraftKings Sportsbook app and use the code SixersChat, new customers who bet $5 get $200 instantly in bonus bets. The Emirates NBA Cup is here. You can win big getting in on the action at DraftKings Sportsbook, an official sports betting partner of the NBA. All 30 teams split into 6 groups, every Tuesday and Friday playing for the right to advance in a single elimination in-season tourney, culminating in the NBA Cup Championship in Vegas. First time? Here's something special just for you. New DraftKings customers bet $5 to get $200 in bonus bets instantly. Score big with DraftKings Sportsbook. Every point counts. Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app and use code SixersChat. That's code SixersChat for new customers to get $200 in bonus bets when you bet just $5. Only on DraftKings. The crown is yours. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. In New York, call 877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY 467-369. In Connecticut, help is available for problem gambling. Call 888-789-4200. 877-829-7777 or visit ccpg.org. Please play responsibly. On behalf of Boot Hill Casino and Resort, Kansas. 21 plus age and eligibility varies by jurisdiction. Void in Ontario. Bonus bets expire 168 hours after issuance. For additional terms and responsible gaming resources, see dkng.co/bball. 76ers obviously off to a rough start this season, currently sitting at 5-15, but still on DraftKings, favored to make the playoffs over missing the playoffs. Minus 185 for the Sixers are those odds to make the playoffs, plus 150 to miss the playoffs. Of course, odds and lines are subject to change. Again, download the DraftKings Sportsbook app. Use that code SixersChat. New customers get $200 in bonus bets instantly when you bet just $5. All right, let's get into these remaining two players on the Utah Jazz that the Sixers could try to make a move for. And we're going to start here with Walker Kessler, a big from Auburn, who, as a rookie, was very, very promising. And then his second year for the Jazz sort of fell out of their good graces and didn't quite have the same impact he did his rookie year. But this year for Utah has been very, very good. Almost 11 points per game, 10.5 rebounds. Always going to be a very efficient player. He does all his damage at the rim. Not going to stretch the floor at all for you, but you don't need that really out of your center there. And almost 3 blocks a game. That's what he's done ever since he came into the league, is just be an efficient scorer at the rim and block a ton of shots. And I think if the Sixers don't love what they're getting from Andre Drummond, Walker Kessler, to me, is a clear upgrade from Andre Drummond. And we know how much of an important position the backup center spot is for the Sixers, because we don't really know what's going on with Joel Embiid and how many games he'll be able to play year in, year out, especially this year. So Walker Kessler's a guy that not only I think will be a great backup, but I think would be a really, really good starter for you when Embiid cannot play. Now, we take a look at some of his percentiles and some of his numbers this year. Shout out to Shot Creator, a great website if you're trying to dive in depth on some stats on players. They have video as well. It's a really great site. So these stats from there. Walker Kessler, the numbers I really want to point out here on his sort of player profile and outline for this season. 10.5 rebounds per game. That is in the 98th percentile of all players. 2.8 blocks per game. The 100th percentile of all players. So he is pretty much as good as it gets when it comes to shot blockers in the association. And then 72.5 true shooting percentage. A lot of that, again, just comes from him scoring at the rim, pretty much dunks, layups, right around there. But that is right up there at the 96th percentile. Obviously not going to do a whole lot else offensively, but will be a player. You know what you're getting, and what you get from Walker Kessler is exactly what the Sixers could really use right now as an interior scorer and just an interior presence to hold it down in the paint. You take a look at what he's done in his 3 years in the NBA. As I mentioned, last year kind of a down year for him in 23-24, but this year really a career year. And his career marks at about 9 points, 8 rebounds, 70%. That's about what you can expect from a player like Walker Kessler, who, again, I think if you are able to bring him in, he's going to cost a lot because he's still so young, and the Jazz are very high on him. And, of course, negotiating with Danny Ainge is always a headache because he's always going to try to maximize the value he gets from his players. But I think Kessler would be a fine addition to the 76ers, also because he's very, very cheap. His contract still on that rookie deal does not cost a lot. And that's why before we look at a trade for Kessler, I want to talk about Jordan Clarkson, because I think you can get these two in the same deal. Now, when we look at Jordan Clarkson this season, he's always been a guy that a streaky shooter, a volume scorer, never going to be the most efficient player. He's going to get his shots up, whether he's making them or missing them. If he's hot, he's hot. If he's cold, he's cold. And this year, he has been ice cold. 15 points per game, 4 assists, but under 40% from the field and under 28% from three. It has not been an efficient season for Jordan Clarkson, but that's why I think it could be a good move to go after him, because you can buy low on Jordan Clarkson. And similar to how Collin Sexton can kind of be that scoring punch for you, Clarkson, I think to a little bit of a lesser degrees, a little bit older and not quite as good in my opinion, he can still give you some of those things that the Sixers don't really have off the bench. Allows you to start McCain and Maxey next to each other, and then you still have a guard off the bench that can be effective and be impactful scoring the ball, because let's be honest, Reggie Jackson, Kyle Lowry, Eric Gordon, those guys just are not cutting it out and are not getting the job done. And, as I mentioned, we're going to take a look at his shot chart here. I told you green is good, way above league average, and we saw a lot of green with Collin Sexton. You're not seeing a whole lot of green here with Jordan Clarkson. A lot of red, little yellow, and a little green. Just 27% on above the break threes. Obviously not what you want to see, and hasn't taken a lot of corner threes, so not a whole lot of volume and sample size to see there. But, when you talk about elite three-point shooters in the league, it's how well can you shoot above the break. And the Sixers have struggled to do that, and Jordan Clarkson has also struggled to do that. Been a little bit better attacking the rim, but, when you look at a player like him, you want him to be efficient from outside. He just really hasn't been that, and he really hasn't been that for a large part of his career. He's had better seasons. You hope that he can get up to 33, 34% from three and up into the low to mid 40s from the field. And then if he's doing that while scoring about 15, 16 a game, you feel good. But if he continues his trajectory right now, not an efficient player, obviously not going to provide anything for you on defense. It's not necessarily ideal. But again, I think it works for the Sixers in this case because you can buy low and you can still have a player that can give you more, even as he's playing right now, than somebody like an Eric Gordon, a Reggie Jackson, or a Kyle Lowry. Now, the reason I wanted to wait to talk about the trade when it came to Walker Kessler and Jordan Clarkson, because of Walker Kessler's low salary, I think you can get these two guys together in the same deal. Walker Kessler making just $3 million, Jordan Clarkson just $14 million. So about $17 million right there. It's going to cost you a little more, but in this deal, you don't have to give up Caleb Martin or Kelly Oubre. You give up KJ Martin, again, the salary filler guy that you know is going to be traded. Eric Gordon, Reggie Jackson, two guys that don't really play for you much anyways. You can send them off. And then you send off Andre Drummond because, look, if you're trading Walker Kessler, there's no reason for you to keep Drummond in here. You need the salary anyway to make the trade work. And I like what I've seen from Adem Bona in limited minutes. Now, there are reports out there that the Jazz are looking for multiple first-round picks for Walker Kessler. Again, it makes sense. He's a young player, had a very good season, and can be a very impactful player on a winning team, which the Utah Jazz are not, and which I hope the 76ers can become. So, look, the two first-round picks, you can decide which two you want to give up. It's going to be costly, but I think two players that can really improve your rotation, and in this trade specifically, without giving up too much in the way of actual players like Caleb Martin, Kelly Oubre, that normally are in your rotation anyways. So, those four guys from the Utah Jazz, names to keep an eye on as we get closer and closer to the trade deadline and the Jazz become sellers. Hopefully the Sixers are in a position where they can be buyers. Before we hop on out of here, I want to hear from you. I want y'all to chime in and let me know your favorite 76ers trade target. Drop the name down below in the comments section right now. It could be one of the four we talked about today from the Utah Jazz. It could be another player around the league that you think could get traded come deadline time that you think will make a good addition on the 76ers. So drop that name in the comments. Be sure to subscribe, and we'll catch you next time here on 76ers Now.